What's going on, y'all? Today we got debunking the biggest lie told about Kobe Bryant's career. This video is about a legend of winning. All links in the description, man. Uh, Last reaction will be at the end of the video. Stay tuned. Let's get into it. Let's get into it without further introduction.
What's up, YouTube? It's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka
Should have got another
Lil Unc.
water.
In
This
today's
shit
video,
empty.
we're going to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Kobe Bean Bryant, who's a Hall of
Let me turn it
Famer,
up for y'all.
my
My
favorite
fault, y'all.
player, and just a few weeks ago was named one of the top 75 greatest players of all time. Now, to be fair, Kobe Bryant is a very polarizing player, and with that stance, there's a lot of criticism that also follows his greatness, most of which I do agree with and I do believe is valid. However, there is one piece of criticism that I never thoroughly understood. The concept of Kobe Bryant is inefficient.
Kobe was efficient, bro.
Kobe was efficient, but at the same time,
He was not that efficient.
Kobe is not efficient at all.
Very inefficient.
Oh, he was inefficient.
Now, the reason why this statement always leaves me scratching my head is because when I was watching Kobe Bryant, it never felt like he was inefficient. It felt like he was dominant, producing in meaningful moments, one of the greatest scorers I've ever seen in my life, and of course there were the occasional games that certainly are a blemish on his career, and please don't spend too much time on the last 3 years of his career because I'm definitely not going to try to defend it, but as a whole, I just don't understand how 19 years of a career as great as Kobe Bryant can be so synonymous with the term inefficient. So in today's video, we're going to see if that's true, because personally, I have a hard time believing that it is. Now, in terms of finding out how efficient a player is in the NBA, there are a handful of ways of doing so. For one, there's an actual stat called efficiency, or you can look at one's PER, which stands for player efficiency rating. However, most people are not aware of these statistics, and even the people who are aware of them really don't even know how to properly calculate them to make an assessment on a player. But if you are someone who claims that Kobe Bryant is inefficient based off of his PER, I then would ask you, would you then claim that players such as Klay Thompson, Reggie Miller, or Ray Allen were inefficient because all three of those players have a lower PER than Kobe Bryant? Which more than likely, no, you would not. And the biggest reason why is because when people are critiquing Kobe Bryant's efficiency, they are referencing how efficiently does he put the ball in the basket. And the reason why I'm confident to coming to this conclusion is because when many people are making this assessment on Kobe, they then pivot to facts about Kobe Bryant's field goal percentage, or also highlighting how he has the most misses in NBA history, which is factually correct. However, and I cannot believe I have to say this in 2021, but it still blows my mind how many experts still make this mistake to this day, but field goal percentage does not calculate efficiency. Now, why is that? Well, simply put, because the definition of being efficient means achieving maximum productivity with minimum wasted effort or expense. And in basketball terms, that basically means maximizing the amount of points that you score with minimum amount of attempts shooting the basketball. And because of that simple definition alone, field goal percentage literally cannot equate to efficiency, because the only thing that field goal percentage equates to is accuracy. Let's say you have player A and player B. Player A shot 5 for 10 from the field, all of which were 2-pointers, so that means that they scored 10 points with a field goal percentage of 50%. However, player B shot 4 for 9 from the field, which means that they have a field goal percentage of 44%, but since all of the shots that they made were 3-pointers, they were able to score 12 points. Now, even though player B had a lower field goal percentage, they still are more efficient than player A because they were able to score 12 points on 9 shot attempts, while player B was only able to produce 10 points on 10 shot attempts. So again, scoring more points on fewer attempts, thus making that player more efficient. So now you may be wondering, how exactly do we calculate efficiency if field goal percentage is unable to do so? Well, the best way to do so is to look at one's true shooting percentage. And the reason why is because true shooting percentage takes into consideration that 3s are more valuable than 2s, as well as looking at one's production at the free throw line. And the reason why it is important to make sure we take into consideration free throws is because 20 to 30% of the points that volume scorers record come from the free throw line. Now, for the people out there who are concerned about the legitimacy of true shooting percentage, especially when you're trying to figure out the true efficiency of big men who did not shoot threes or also were horrible at free throw shooting, trust me when I say please don't be too concerned, because when you look at the numbers, you'll clearly see those players are still very efficient scorers. But what is a legitimate concern is determining what is the standard of efficiency. Because comparing Kobe Bryant to today's era of basketball, quite honestly, just wouldn't do him any justice, mainly because how much the game of basketball has changed since he's played a full season in the NBA. And so to make sure we eliminate all of those factors, we're only going to be comparing Kobe Bryant to his peers. Players who played within the years 2000 to 2013 and played at least 500 games, and players who averaged at least 19 points or more. Not only does this remove all variables that will be out of Kobe Bryant's control, while also excluding the tail end of certain players' careers like Karl Malone, or the first couple of years of other players' careers like Damian Lillard. So, with those parameters set, what exactly is the standard of efficiency between the years of 2000 and 2013, or better known as the league average true shooting percentage? And that number is 53%. So, that's the magic number, and here is the graph. On the x-axis, we have the points per game average, and on the y-axis, we have the true shooting percentages. Again, 53% is the league average throughout this 14-year span, so that line will be bolded. And now, all the dots on the screen represent all of the volume scores throughout this time frame. Now, of course, on the screen, we have some familiar faces. All the way up here, we have Ray Allen, who was easily the most efficient perimeter-oriented player within this time frame. And right above him, we have both Amari Stoudemire and Shaquille O'Neal. So, for the people out there who were concerned about how true shooting percentage affects big men, well, both players not only did not shoot any threes, but Shaq is historically one of the worst free throw shooters in NBA history, and yet both of them have the highest true shooting percentages. Now, below league average, you have players such as Monte Ellis and Antoine Jameson. However, what really threw me by surprise was Tracy McGrady. However, when you take into consideration that McGrady was dealing with a lot of injuries, as well as him being a subpar free throw shooter, then I guess a true shooting percentage of 52% somewhat makes sense. But we're not here for that, because we got to figure out where exactly is Kobe Bryant. Now, if you are someone who believes that Kobe was inefficient, then you probably believe that this dot here belongs to him, as not only is it someone below league average in true shooting, but also has a high volume in terms of his scoring prowess. However, you would be wrong. That dot doesn't belong to Kobe Bryant. That's actually Allen Iverson, who had a true shooting percentage of 51.8, which means that this dot here belongs to Kobe Bryant, who averaged 27.8 points per game in this time frame with a true shooting percentage of 55.6%, which makes his true shooting percentage above league average. But more importantly, this does mean that Kobe Bryant is indeed an efficient volume scorer. Now, with that myth being debunked, and while I have your attention, there are a few other things that I want to just tackle just briefly. A, it is amazing to me that Kobe, who again has a true shooting percentage of 55.6, still consistently gets hit with the label of inefficient, but you have a player like D Wade, who has a true shooting percentage of 56.7%, or even LeBron, who had a true shooting percentage of 57.5% during his time frame, and yet no one claims that they are quote-unquote inefficient, despite the fact that their level of efficiency is relatively similar to Kobe's. But hey, I guess technically speaking, they're higher, so you might be able to make the argument, but what about KG or Tim Duncan? Both players have a true shooting percentage that is lower than Kobe's, and again, no one doesn't claim that they are inefficient ball players. So, because of this, I dug a little deeper, because there had to be some inkling of proof that Kobe Bryant was inefficient at scoring the basketball. I looked back on a year-to-year basis throughout the years 2000 and 2013, and no, still could not find a single year where Kobe Bryant had a true shooting that was below league average. Matter of fact, he has some seasons where his true shooting percentage is 3 to 4% higher than league average. Actually, the year in which he led the NBA averaging 31 points per game, he had a true shooting percentage of 58%, which is mind-blowing and should be even further proof that Kobe Bryant is not inefficient at all, but yet I kept digging. I then went to the playoff numbers, and still no proof. Kobe Bryant's true shooting percentage does dip by 1%, however that is very common amongst many volume scorers, but even with a 1% drop in his true shooting percentage, Kobe would still be above league average. Furthermore, when I dug even deeper into Kobe Bryant's playoff performances, I started to notice a very consistent pattern, and that is Kobe Bryant matched up against some of the most toughest defensive competition in league history. See, Kobe played in arguably the most defensive-oriented era in NBA history. Add on top of the fact that he played in the Western Conference, which was significantly tougher than the Eastern Conference, and it actually makes sense how consistently Kobe matched up against top 10 defenses in the NBA on a year-to-year basis. To put a number on it, again, between the years of 2000 and 2013, Kobe Bryant matched up against 36 teams in the playoffs. Out of those 36 teams, 28 of them had a top 10 defense or better, which means that over 75% of the time, Kobe was matching up against one of the top 10 defensive units in the NBA that year. And to make things even more interesting, there was only one time in Kobe's entire postseason career where he had the privilege to match up against a team that had a bottom 10 defense. This matchup occurred in the 2010 Western Conference Finals, where the Lakers went up against a Phoenix Suns team that had the 23rd ranked defense in the NBA that season, and by the end of the series, you could argue Kobe had the best series of his entire career, averaging nearly 34 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, and with a true shooting percentage of nearly 64%, which was roughly 12% higher than league average that season. Now, what exactly does all this mean? Well, let me put some numbers on it so you can get a better understanding of how impressive all of this is. During the years of 2000 and 2013, the league average defensive rating is 105.6. However, Kobe Bryant's competition in the playoffs on average had a defensive rating of 102.4. And remember, with defensive rating, the lower the number, the better, which means that Kobe Bryant's defensive competition in the playoffs had a defensive rating differential of negative 3.1. To put that into context, if we did the exact same thing for Michael Jordan, the league average throughout his years in the playoffs was 107.5, with his competition having a defensive rating of 105.3, which means that the defensive differential would be less than Kobe's. And if we did the exact same thing with LeBron, again, the defensive differential is not on par with Kobe Bryant's competition, meaning that Kobe Bryant had to match up against tougher defensive competition throughout his playoff career. So the fact that Kobe's shooting efficiency only dropped by 1%, despite the fact that he matched up against all-time great defensive units throughout his postseason career, is even more mind-blowing and should further dispel any narrative that Kobe Bryant was quote-unquote inefficient. So, with all of this time, research, and context implied into Kobe Bryant's career and the label of him being inefficient finally being debunked, you would believe that I would be content in the concept of debunking this whole Kobe Bryant is inefficient narrative. But I'm just not. I'm sorry, people. I don't understand how so many people can be wrong at this. There has to be some way that people are looking at this through a lens of Kobe Bryant being inefficient. So let's just remove all variables and blindly compare Kobe Bryant's true shooting percentage between the years 2000 and 2013, which again is 55.6%, to today's era of basketball, because that would be the only way possible that I can imagine that someone could confidently claim that Kobe Bryant is indeed inefficient. But even when I do that, there aren't that many years where that would be applicable to. I looked over several years over the course of the past decade, and honestly only came up with 3 years where Kobe Bryant's true shooting percentage would be below league average. Those 3 years are 2019, 2020, and the 2021 season. But that's literally it. So even if you are someone who wouldn't use relative true shooting percentage and just ignorantly compare Kobe Bryant across league history just willy-nilly, there's only 3 years in which you could claim that Kobe Bryant was an inefficient volume scorer. But if you do that, you're dumb. You are literally stripping away several layers of context that is needed for this complex conversation. Furthermore, after me and my team did the research for this video, shout out to Classy and No Layups, we all agreed that Kobe Bryant is not only efficient, but there are very legitimate arguments that back up the claim that he is one of the greatest scorers the league has ever seen. But if that is not a stance that you are willing to take, I beg you please, at bare minimum, stop calling Kobe Bryant inefficient, because it is easily one of the biggest lies I've heard being told about one of the all-time greats. If you enjoyed the video,
Last under this one, y'all. Let me know how y'all feel. Do y'all feel Kobe was inefficient? Do y'all feel he was efficient? You know, let me know in the comments. Turn on post notifications. Links in the description, man. Make sure you click on that last reaction as well. And I'm out of here.